The morning started like any other day for 16-year-old Malik Johnson, a quiet black teen who usually kept to himself as he walked to school. The city streets were busy, filled with people rushing to work, students chatting, and cars honking from every direction. Malik moved fast because he hated being late, but he also hated attention. So he kept his head down and focused on the sidewalk. But that morning, something unusual caught his eye near the bus stop. An old woman stood alone, confused, holding a small handbag close to her chest like she was scared someone would take it. Her gray hair was messy, her hands were shaking, and she kept turning in circles as if she didn't know where she was. People passed her without stopping. Some looked at her for a second, but kept walking. Others simply ignored her completely. A few even stepped around her like she was blocking their path. But no one asked if she needed help. No one slowed down. No one cared. Malik felt something twist in his chest when he saw her. He wasn't sure why, but he couldn't walk past her like everyone else. His grandmother had always taught him that kindness was free, and that helping someone made you stronger, not weaker. So he took a deep breath and stepped toward the old woman. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he asked softly. She didn't answer at first. Her eyes darted left and right as if she didn't recognize him or the street around her. Then she looked at Malik with a lost expression. "I don't know where I am," she whispered, her voice trembling like a frightened child. "I can't find my home." Malik's heart sank. She reminded him of his own grandmother, who had passed away 2 years earlier. He remembered how she sometimes forgot things before she died. The same fear in her eyes, the same confusion. He couldn't leave this woman alone. "Don't worry," he said gently. "I'll help you." The woman blinked, surprised that anyone had finally stopped. "What's your name, ma'am?" he asked. She hesitated, then said, "Eleanor." "Eleanor Brooks." Malik smiled softly. "Okay, Miss Eleanor. Let's sit down on that bench for a minute." He helped her walk carefully to the bus stop bench. Making sure she didn't fall, people around them stared for a moment. But they still didn't offer help. Some even looked annoyed, as if an old woman and a teenage boy sitting on a bench was an inconvenience to their busy morning. Malik ignored them. "Do you have a phone?" he asked. Eleanor opened her handbag and shook her head. "No phone," she murmured. "No address. I can't remember my street." Malik felt panic rising inside him, but he kept his voice calm. "Do you remember anything? Maybe a building near your home? Or someone's name?" She closed her eyes and tried to think. "I remember a garden," she whispered, "and a red mailbox. But everything else feels gone." Malik knew he had to do something. He couldn't leave her there, confused and alone. But he also knew he was going to be late for school, and the principal was already warning him about his attendance. He looked at Eleanor again, saw her trembling hands and scared eyes, and made a decision. Some things were more important than being on time. Some things were more important than rules. Helping her felt right. Helping her felt necessary. He stood up and said, "Miss Eleanor, I'm going to call someone who can help." He dialed the emergency number, explained that he found an elderly woman who seemed lost and confused, and the dispatcher promised to send an officer to the location. But when Malik hung up, he noticed Eleanor gripping the bench tightly, her eyes full of fear again. "Are they going to take me away?" she whispered. "My husband. He used to pick me up when I got confused, but he's gone now." Malik sat beside her. "No one is going to hurt you," he said gently. "I'll stay right here until help comes." And so he stayed. 10 minutes passed, then 15. People kept walking by, still ignoring them, still pretending they didn't see what was happening, but Malik didn't move, because something deep inside him told him that this moment would matter, that helping Eleanor was not a small act, that this simple choice, stopping when everyone else walked past, would change something in his life. Something big, something unexpected. He just didn't know how yet. But his life was already starting to shift. One quiet heartbeat at a time. The police took longer than Malik expected, and every passing minute made Eleanor more nervous. She held her bag so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her breathing grew quick, uneven, and shaky. Malik noticed this and leaned closer so she wouldn't feel alone. "It's okay, Miss Eleanor. I'm right here," he said softly. But the world around them didn't slow down for her fear. People continued walking quickly. rushing to their jobs or scrolling through their phones. A few glanced at the pair sitting on the bench, but they simply walked past like before. Malik felt a strange anger rising inside him, not rage, but disappointment. Disappointment that so many people could see someone suffering and do nothing. He turned back to Eleanor and asked gently, "Is there anyone else in your family? Any children? Neighbors?" Eleanor took a shaky breath and tried to remember. "I had a daughter," she whispered. "I think I did." Yes, her name was... Oh dear. Her voice faded as frustration filled her eyes. She looked like a person searching through fog with no map. Malik placed a calm hand on her arm. "It's okay if you don't remember right now," he said. "Sometimes memories come back later." Eleanor nodded slowly, though her fear didn't leave her face. A bus stopped in front of them, its doors hissing open. The driver stared for a moment, noticed the frightened old woman and the concerned teen, but didn't say anything. He simply closed the doors and drove away. Malik shook his head slightly, wondering how the world became so cold. 15 more minutes passed before a police car finally pulled up beside the sidewalk. 2 officers stepped out, one older and calm-looking, the other younger, with a strict expression. The younger officer approached first. "What's going on here?" he asked in a sharp voice. Malik stood up politely, explaining everything he knew. Eleanor looked up at the officers like a scared child. Her hands shook harder than before. "I don't want to go," she murmured. "Please don't take me." The younger officer frowned. "We're not taking you anywhere, ma'am." "We're just here to help," he said, though his voice lacked warmth. The older officer crouched in front of her, speaking in a much gentler tone. "Ma'am, we just want to make sure you're safe." Eleanor blinked, unsure, then looked to Malik as if asking for permission. He nodded softly. "It's okay, Miss Eleanor," he whispered. "I'll stay right here." The older officer checked her pulse and asked her a few simple questions. "What's your name? Do you live nearby? Do you know what city you're in?" Eleanor struggled through each answer, sometimes forgetting mid-sentence. The officers exchanged a concerned look. This might be a case of dementia, the older officer said quietly to the younger one. Malik heard the word and felt his heart sink. His grandmother had suffered from the same thing. The younger officer sighed. "We need to take her to the station until we find her family," the moment he said that. Eleanor grabbed Malik's sleeve tightly. "No, don't leave me. Please don't take me," she whispered. Tears filled her eyes. Malik swallowed hard. He didn't plan for this. He didn't want to get more involved. But something in Eleanor's fear pulled him in deeper. He couldn't break her trust now. "Sir," he said to the older officer, "can I come with her? Just until she feels safe?" The younger officer scoffed. "You're a minor, kid. You can't just follow us to the station." But the older officer studied Malik for a moment and then gave a slow nod. "He saved her," he said softly. "She trusts him. We can allow him to ride along if his school's contacted." School? Malik froze, remembering he was already extremely late. This was going to be bad. Maybe detention, maybe suspension. But when he looked at Eleanor gripping his sleeve like he was the only solid thing in her world, he knew what his choice had to be. "I'll go with her," he said quietly. "I'll call my school on the way." They helped Eleanor stand, and Malik gently held her hand so she wouldn't fall. She leaned on him, whispering, "Thank you. Thank you for not leaving me." He felt a tightness in his chest. Not sadness, not fear. Something else. Something deeper. As he helped her into the back of the police car, Malik didn't know that this simple choice, sitting beside a lost old woman, was about to open a door into a world he never expected. A world filled with secrets, regrets, forgotten memories, and a truth about Eleanor's life that would change his own future in ways he couldn't imagine. He thought he was helping her, but soon he would learn that Eleanor Brooks was going to change him. In ways he never saw coming, the police car ride felt longer than it really was. Eleanor sat beside Malik, her hands trembling, her eyes staring out the window like she was watching a world she didn't recognize. Malik stayed close, quietly telling her that everything was fine. Even though he wasn't sure himself, the older officer drove carefully while the younger one tapped on a tablet, trying to search records for someone named Eleanor Brooks. Halfway to the station, Eleanor suddenly whispered, "My house had roses." Malik turned to her. Surprised she spoke on her own, roses. He repeated gently. She nodded slowly, her voice thin like paper. Yes. Yellow roses. They were his favorite, his. Malik asked softly. Eleanor blinked, her lips trembling. My husband, Thomas. He planted them every spring. Malik offered a warm smile. That's good, Miss Eleanor. That's something to remember. But before she could say anything more, her face tightened. She pressed both hands to her head. No, no. Something happened. Something bad, she whispered. Malik leaned forward. What do you mean? Her eyes filled with fear. They came. They broke in. He tried to stop them. I can't remember. I can't remember. Her voice cracked as she shook her head violently, as if trying to shake the memory away. The older officer glanced at them through the mirror. Worried, ma'am? Just breathe, he said calmly. But Eleanor only clung to Malik's arm, her voice trembling. They hurt him. They hurt Thomas. Malik felt his heart tighten. He didn't know this woman. Didn't know her husband, didn't know her life. Yet her fear felt close, familiar, real. He placed a hand gently on her back. It's okay, Miss Eleanor. You're safe now. But Eleanor shook her head. No. He wasn't safe. He wasn't safe because of me, she whispered. Tears slid down her cheeks. I told them where the money was. Because they said they'd leave us alone. But they lied. Both officers exchanged sharp looks. This didn't sound like confusion anymore. It sounded like a real memory when they reached the station. The older officer helped Eleanor out of the car while Malik followed close. Inside, a female officer brought Eleanor a blanket and a warm drink. She sat on a small bench with Malik beside her. Never letting go of his sleeve, the officers tried asking more questions. But her thoughts were tangled, jumping from one moment to another. Sometimes she remembered details clearly. Sometimes everything disappeared again. Malik used the station phone to call his school. The secretary sighed loudly. Saying she would report it to the principal, he prepared himself for trouble later, but right now, he didn't care. Eleanor mattered more. Someone needed him more. After an hour of searching, the younger officer approached Malik with a hesitant look. We found a record. Maybe, he said. There's an Eleanor Brooks who lived on Pinewood Street, but the house was sold 2 years ago. Sold? Malik repeated. The officer nodded. Apparently she moved out after her husband died. Tragic case. Robbery gone wrong. Malik felt his chest tighten. It matched what Eleanor had said in the car. The officer continued. She disappeared from a care facility last night. They've been looking everywhere. Malik looked at Eleanor. She was staring ahead blankly, like she didn't hear anything. But he could tell part of her had heard. Her eyes were wet again, filled with old pain. Can we take her back? Malik asked. The younger officer sighed. The problem is, the facility is understaffed. They said she sometimes wanders off. And they can't stop her every time. Malik frowned. You mean she could get lost again? The officer shrugged. It happens. Malik clenched his fists. How can they let that happen? She was walking alone on a busy street. She could have been hurt. The officer didn't answer. At that moment, Eleanor suddenly spoke, her voice startlingly clear. I don't want to go back. Everyone turned to her. She looked at Malik, her eyes sharp with fear. They leave me alone. They don't talk to me. They don't let me walk in the garden. Thomas planted roses. But they don't let me see any. Malik swallowed hard. Her voice was so small, yet so full of heartbreak. He turned to the officers. Isn't there another place she can go? A better one? But the older officer shook his head. She has no known family. No one to take responsibility. Without that, the system pushes her back to the same facility. Malik looked at Eleanor again. She looked like someone being sent to a prison, not a safe place. He couldn't understand how the world could fail someone so gentle. What if? He paused, his voice unsure. What if someone else stayed with her until she remembered something? Someone she trusts. The older officer looked at Malik carefully. You mean you? Malik felt a lump in his throat. He wasn't a hero. He was just a kid. He had school, chores, his own life, but Eleanor's trembling fingers held his sleeve, her eyes pleading without a single word spoken. He couldn't walk away from her. not after everything. Yes, he said quietly. I'll stay. I'll help her remember. I'll help her feel safe. He didn't know how big of a promise he had just made. He didn't know how much it would change his life. But he knew this. He couldn't let her face the world alone again. The officers were not expecting a 16-year-old boy to make such a bold promise. Malik himself wasn't sure how the words had slipped out. But when he looked at Eleanor, her frail hands trembling, her eyes full of fear, her shoulders small under the blanket, he knew he couldn't take the words back. He wouldn't, not when she needed him. The older officer, Officer Harding, studied Malik with a thoughtful expression. You do understand what you're saying? He asked softly. You're offering to stay with her. Comfort her. Until she regained some clarity, Malik nodded once. Yes, sir, the younger officer scoffed quietly. This is ridiculous, he muttered. He's a kid. He can't take responsibility for an elderly woman with dementia. Eleanor flinched at the sharp tone of his voice. Malik stepped a little closer to her. She trusts me, he said firmly. That should mean something. Officer Harding exhaled slowly. Rubbing his forehead, it does mean something. More than you know, he gestured for Malik to sit beside Eleanor again. The boy did without hesitation. Eleanor leaned toward him the moment he sat down. Like his presence was the only familiar thing she had left. Harding turned to the younger officer, speaking in a low voice. Look at her. She's terrified. She only responds to him. We need to think about her emotional state. The younger officer frowned, but didn't argue back. He simply crossed his arms and stared at the wall. Clearly unhappy, but no longer fighting the idea. Harding walked back to Malik. Here's what I can do, he said gently. We can escort her to the care facility. And you can come along for the first hour. If she calms down, you can step out. If not, we'll figure something out. Malik glanced at Eleanor. Her fingers tightened around his sleeve again. I don't want to go back, she whispered. They forget about me. They say they're busy. I get lost. Thomas wouldn't leave me there. Those words cut straight into Malik's heart. Harding sighed. It's not safe for her to live alone. The facility is the only place available, but maybe you being there will help her adjust. Malik nodded slowly. I'll go with her. He didn't know what he was stepping into. But he knew he had to step into something. Doing nothing wasn't an option anymore. As Eleanor stood up with Malik's help, she whispered something too soft for the officers to hear. Thank you. Thomas would have liked you. Malik's chest tightened again. He helped her walk outside where a second police vehicle waited. Not a squad car, a transport designed to feel safer and calmer. A female officer opened the back door and helped Eleanor inside. Malik climbed in beside her. The officers took their seats in the front. The engine started. The city outside seemed almost too normal, too busy. Too unaware of the scared old woman in the back seat, Eleanor stared out the window, her expression drifting between confusion and brief flashes of clarity. Malik spoke softly to keep her grounded. Do you remember anything else? Anything small? Eleanor squinted. My husband. He always wore a blue tie on Sundays. She paused, and we had a piano. He played it every evening. Her voice softened. He played for me. Malik smiled gently. That sounds beautiful. Her eyes filled again. It was until the night they came, she whispered. They broke the door. They hit him. I screamed. Her hands shook like she could still feel the moment. Malik placed a calming hand on her back. No one will hurt you now, he said, his voice steady. Even though inside he felt shaken by the picture she described when they reached the care facility. The building looked clean from the outside. Well-painted walls, trimmed bushes. A large sign reading Green Meadow Home, a place of comfort. But as soon as they walked in, Malik sensed something different. The lights were dim. The air smelled like old disinfectant. Two staff members stood behind the counter, but didn't seem concerned when they saw Eleanor. She wandered off again, one side. Barely looking up from her phone, Malik's jaw tightened. Her tone was too casual, too careless, the other staff member said. Just put her in room 12 again like she was luggage. Not a person. Eleanor's hand clamped firmly around Malik's. Her breathing quickened. She whispered, No. Please, no. Malik faced the officers. This place doesn't feel right, he said firmly. It's like they don't even care. Harding looked conflicted. We don't choose the facility. We only return residents. I'm sorry. Malik. But Malik wasn't listening anymore. He was focused on Eleanor, trembling, pleading, terrified. His voice came out stronger than he expected. She isn't safe here if no one cares for her. Someone has to. Harding looked at him carefully. And who do you think that someone is? Malik swallowed hard. He didn't want to say it. He didn't plan to say it, but the words came anyway. I'll do it, he whispered. I'll help her. I'll come every day. She won't be alone again. Eleanor looked at him with wide, watery eyes. For the first time that day, she smiled. A small, shaking smile, but real. And in that moment, Malik's life quietly changed direction. He didn't know how much time, effort, or sacrifice this promise would cost him. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't walking away. Not now, not ever. The promise Malik made at the care facility stayed in his mind all night. He kept replaying Eleanor's trembling smile, her quiet thank you, and the way she clung to him like he was the only safe person in the room. He hardly slept. His mind kept drifting back to the dim hallways of Green Meadow Home, the tired nurses, the uncaring tone, the way they spoke about Eleanor like she was an item, not a human being by morning. His worry turned into determination. He packed his school bag, then added a small notebook, a pen, and a chocolate bar he had been saving. Something told him Eleanor might like a sweet treat. Before leaving the house, he turned to his mom, who was sipping tea at the kitchen counter. Mom, I need to visit someone after school, he said carefully. His mom raised an eyebrow. Who? An elderly lady? Her name is Eleanor Brooks. She got lost yesterday. His mom put her cup down slowly. What do you mean lost? Malik explained everything. Finding her. The police, the care facility, and the promise he made. His mom listened with wide eyes, her face softening with every detail. When he finished, she let out a long breath. Malik, you have the biggest heart, she said gently. But don't take on too much, I know, he said. But she needs someone. His mom nodded slowly. Then I'll go with you today. Malik blinked in surprise. You will? She smiled. No one should face a place like that alone. School that day felt painfully slow. Every class felt longer than usual. His mind kept drifting back to Eleanor, wondering if she was scared, wondering if she remembered him. Finally, the bell rang. Malik ran outside where his mom waited in the car. Together, they drove to Green Meadow Home. The building looked even duller in the late afternoon light. Inside, the staff barely looked up when they walked in. The same woman at the counter was scrolling on her phone. Without lifting her eyes, she said, If you're here for a resident, sign in. Malik felt irritation rise again. But his mom placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, reminding him to stay calm. We're here to see Eleanor Brooks, his mom said politely. The woman finally glanced up. Oh. Room 12, she said lazily. You know the way. As they walked down the hallway, Malik whispered, This place feels wrong. His mom nodded. I know. It feels cold. Like no one here loves their job? When they reached room 12, Malik knocked lightly. No response. He knocked again. Still nothing. So he slowly pushed the door open. Eleanor was sitting on the bed, staring at the wall. Her hair was messy, her blanket half on the floor. There was a small, untouched meal tray beside her. She looked so small, so lost. But when she turned her head and saw Malik, her face changed completely. Her eyes lit up with recognition. Malik, she whispered, as if his name was a warm blanket. She held out her trembling hands, and Malik rushed to her side. I told you I'd come, he said softly. She nodded quickly, almost like a child wanting to show she believed him. His mom stepped forward with a kind smile. Hello, Miss Eleanor? I'm Malik's mother. Eleanor blinked, studying her face slowly. You look kind, she said carefully. His mom knelt beside her. I'm just here to make sure you're okay. Malik pulled out the chocolate bar from his bag. I brought this for you, he said. Eleanor's eyes widened slightly. For me. Malik nodded. Yes. I thought you might like something sweet. She held it like it was a precious gift. Thomas used to bring me chocolates, she whispered. He said sweet things were good for the heart. His mom smiled warmly. Your husband sounds like a thoughtful man, Eleanor nodded softly. He was. Until. Her expression clouded again. She grabbed Malik's hand tightly. Don't let them take me somewhere else, she whispered. Don't let them forget me. Malik felt his chest ache. I won't, he promised. I'm here. I'll keep coming. His mom looked around the room, the dim light, the peeling wallpaper, the untouched food, and she frowned deeply. This place needs improvement, she murmured. It doesn't feel like a place for healing, Malik agreed silently. Then he noticed something on the bedside table. A small, old photograph, faded and bent. He picked it up gently. It was a picture of a younger Eleanor standing beside a tall man wearing a blue tie. They looked happy, peaceful, alive. Is this Thomas? Malik asked. Eleanor reached out for the photo, her hand shaking. Yes. That was the last good year. Before everything fell apart, his mom glanced at Malik. We need to find out what really happened to her, she whispered. Her story isn't ordinary. And something isn't right here. Malik nodded. For the first time, he felt something new, not just responsibility. Not just kindness, but a mission, a purpose. A quiet determination to uncover the truth no one else cared to see. Eleanor's voice broke through his thoughts. Will you come back tomorrow? Malik squeezed her hand gently. Yes, he said. I'll be here. Every day if I have to. And as he said those words, a strange feeling washed over him, the feeling that this was only the beginning. That helping Eleanor wasn't just an act of kindness, it was the start of something bigger, something that would soon turn his quiet life upside down. The next day, Malik woke up earlier than usual. He didn't need an alarm. His mind was already awake, already thinking about Eleanor. School felt like a blur. Teachers talking, classmates laughing, pages flipping, but none of it reached him. All he could think about was her small, trembling hands, her fear of being forgotten, and the strange way she mentioned her husband's death. When the final bell rang, Malik almost ran out of the building. His mom was waiting again. She didn't even ask if he wanted to go. She already knew the answer. They drove straight to Green Meadow home. The sky cloudy and the wind cold as they entered the building. Malik noticed something strange. The woman at the counter wasn't there. Instead, a tall man with a clipboard stood behind the desk. He looked up and gave them a stiff smile. Can I help you? He asked. We're here to see Eleanor Brooks, Malik's mom said politely. The man blinked, then frowned slightly. Room 12, right? Yes, Malik replied. The man hesitated for a moment, then he nodded. She should be there, he said. Though his voice didn't sound certain, Malik's heart tightened. He walked quickly down the hallway, his mom close behind. When he reached room 12, he knocked once, twice, 3 times. No answer. Eleanor's words echoed in Malik's mind like thunder. The same ones who hurt Thomas, she had whispered. The room felt colder after she said it. Even the nurses standing nearby looked uneasy. No one expected an elderly woman with dementia to speak with such clarity and fear. Malik sat beside her, gently rubbing her back. It's okay, Miss Eleanor. You're safe now, but deep inside. He wasn't sure she was safe at all, not in this place. Not if someone truly wanted to harm her. His mom stood behind him, looking at the nurses with a firm expression. Why was she in this room? She asked. One nurse shook her head. We don't know. This room hasn't been used for months. It should have been locked. Then how did she end up here? Malik's mom asked sharply. The nurses exchanged nervous glances. Eleanor clung to Malik's arm. They were walking around, whispering. They said they needed to move me, she murmured. Malik froze. Who said that? Eleanor shook her head slowly. I didn't see their faces, only heard the voices. But one sounded familiar. Before Malik could ask more, the tall man from yesterday suddenly appeared in the hallway. Malik's heart jumped. It was him, the man who lied about moving her, the one who disappeared when they returned. But today he wore a name tag that wasn't there before. Jason, Hill, assistant director. He forced a smile. You found her? He said casually. She must have wandered off again. Malik stood up quickly. She didn't wander off, he said firmly. You told us she was moved? Jason's smile twitched. No. You misunderstood, he said smoothly. I simply suggested checking room 18. Sometimes residents hide there. That room is used for storage, Malik said. There was no bed. No blankets. No reason for anyone to go there. Jason's eyes hardened for a brief moment, then his smile returned. Well, maybe the staff is reorganizing, he said. We have lots of new changes happening. Malik's mom stepped forward. We want to know why she was left alone in a locked room, she demanded. Jason shrugged. Accidents happen, but Malik watched him closely. His eyes were calm, like someone hiding more than a simple mistake. He turned back to Eleanor. Miss Eleanor. Do you recognize this man's voice? He asked softly. Eleanor stared at Jason for a long moment, her eyes narrowing. She clutched Malik's sleeve tighter. I heard him, she whispered. That night. When Thomas... Jason's face drained of color for a split second. Then he forced another smile. I think she's confused, he said quickly. She remembers things incorrectly sometimes, but Malik's gut twisted. This wasn't random. Eleanor didn't point fingers easily. She barely remembered names, yet she remembered voices. Jason stepped closer. Why don't you let us handle her care from here? He said, You're only upsetting her. Malik stepped in front of Eleanor protectively. She's not upset because of me, he said quietly. She's scared because someone here is lying. Jason's eyes darkened. For the first time, his mask slipped, just slightly. Enough for Malik to see something cold underneath. A nurse entered the room suddenly, breaking the tension. We prepared her dinner, she said. Jason turned quickly. Good. Take her, he ordered. The nurse stepped toward Eleanor, but she recoiled. I'm staying with Malik, she whispered. Her voice full of fear. Jason clenched his jaw. We can't have outsiders interfering with care procedures, he muttered. Malik's mom stepped forward now. We're not outsiders, she said. We're witnesses. Jason's eyes flickered. Witnesses to what? To how this place treats people, she said coldly. Jason stared at them a moment longer, then slowly backed out of the room. But the threat in his eyes was impossible to miss. When he left, Malik leaned closer to Eleanor. Miss Eleanor, he said softly, what happened to Thomas that night? Eleanor touched the faded photograph on her lap. Her voice broke as memories struggled to surface. He didn't die in a simple robbery, she whispered. They were after something else. Something Thomas hid. Malik's breath caught. What did he hide? She shook her head tearfully. I don't remember. But he said it could help people. And hurt powerful men. Very powerful. Malik felt chills run through him. This wasn't just a story. This wasn't just dementia. This was the beginning of a secret someone wanted to bury. And somehow, he was now standing right in the center of it. That night, Malik could barely sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Eleanor hiding in that dusty room. He saw the fear on her face. He saw Jason's cold expression. Something dangerous was happening, and Eleanor was in the middle of it. Malik sat up in bed and grabbed the notebook he kept beside him. He wrote down everything Eleanor had remembered so far. Yellow roses, the blue tie, the piano, the robbery, the voices, and now. The secret Thomas hid. But what secret could a quiet man with a garden and a piano be hiding? Malik stared at the words. None of it made sense. Unless Thomas wasn't just a simple man. Unless he had something worth stealing the next afternoon. Malik and his mom returned to Green Meadow home. But this time, they weren't alone. Malik's uncle Jamal, a sharp, calm man who worked as a city investigator, came with them. When Malik told him everything, Jamal didn't laugh. He didn't say Eleanor was confused. He simply said, if she remembers voices. It matters at the front desk. Jason wasn't there instead. Two nurses whispered quietly until they saw Jamal's badge. Their faces instantly stiffened. We're doing a wellness check, Jamal said. No one leaves the room, the nurses nodded nervously. Malik rushed to room 12. This time Eleanor was sitting on the bed. Awake, dressed, waiting, when she saw Malik. She immediately stretched out her hands. You came back, she whispered. I knew you wouldn't leave. Malik sat beside her and smiled. I told you I'd come every day. His mom stood near the door while Jamal sat on the chair across from them. Miss Eleanor, Jamal said calmly, I want to ask you a few questions. Only if you feel comfortable? Eleanor nodded slowly. Her fingers trembled around the photograph she always kept close. Thomas didn't die in a simple robbery, did he? Jamal asked. Eleanor closed her eyes. Her lips shook. No. They wanted something he had. Something in his study? What was in his study? She shook her head painfully. He never told me. He said it was safer if I didn't know. Jamal leaned forward. Did Thomas work anywhere important? Eleanor nodded. Yes. He was an accountant. But not just any accountant. He worked for men who wore suits. Men with money. Men who held meetings at night. Malik and his mom exchanged stunned looks. Eleanor continued. One night he came home shaking. He said he found something wrong. Money missing. Numbers changed. And he printed something. Something they didn't want anyone to see. Malik's eyes widened. A document. Yes, Eleanor whispered. He hid it in the house. In the piano? The piano? Malik repeated. Yes. He removed one of the wooden panels, slipped the papers inside. Tears filled her eyes. He said, If anything happens to me, tell someone who can help. Someone honest? Someone brave. Malik felt his breath catch. Thomas had prepared for danger. He had trusted someone would one day uncover the truth. Jamal nodded slowly. What happened the night he died? Eleanor's voice shook. They broke in. 3 men. They yelled. Asked where the papers were? Thomas refused. Her voice cracked. He said he'd rather die than hand them over. A cold silence filled the room. Even Malik's mom wiped her eyes. And the voices you heard yesterday? Jamal asked softly. Eleanor's lips trembled. One of them sounded like... She looked terrified. She pressed her face into Malik's arm. I don't want to say it. I'm scared you're safe, Malik whispered. We're here! She lifted her head, her voice barely a breath. One voice belonged to someone in this facility. Malik's spine stiffened. Not a stranger, not an outsider. Someone right here, a nurse. A staff member? Or Jason? Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hall. Loud, fast, urgent, Jamal stood up immediately. The door swung open. Jason stood there, his face pale, his eyes sharp. We need to talk, he said, his voice dangerously calm. Jamal stepped between him and Eleanor. No, he said firmly. You're done talking to her. Jason's smile twitched. You don't understand. You're all in danger if you dig too deep. Malik stepped forward. Danger from who? Jason stared at him for a long moment, then whispered one chilling sentence. From the same men who killed her husband. And they know you're involved now, Eleanor gasped. Malik's chest tightened. His mom grabbed his arm. Jamal reached for his phone. Everything shifted. Everything changed. And Malik knew this story wasn't ending here. It was just beginning, because now he wasn't just helping Eleanor. He was protecting her and uncovering the secret Thomas died trying to reveal. A secret powerful men would kill again to hide. But Malik wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever. He pushed the door gently. The room was empty. The bed was made neatly, the blanket folded perfectly. The small tray was gone, but Eleanor wasn't there. Malik's chest tightened. Where is she? He whispered. His mom frowned. She wouldn't wander off again. She can barely walk without help. Malik rushed back to the front desk. The tall man looked up again. Sir, Eleanor isn't in her room, Malik said urgently. The man blinked slowly. Oh, yes, she was moved. Moved. Malik repeated, to where? His mom asked sharply. The man glanced at his clipboard, then shrugged. Room 18? Like it was nothing? Why was she moved? Malik pressed. The man kept writing on the paper. Not enough space. Or maybe they're reorganizing. I don't know, the answer felt wrong. Too careless, too empty still. Malik hurried down the hall to room 18. He pushed the door open and froze. Room 18 wasn't a residence room. It looked like storage boxes stacked to the ceiling. Old wheelchairs, broken walkers, dust covering every corner. No bed, No blankets, no Eleanor. Malik's stomach dropped. "She's not here," he whispered. His mom walked in behind him, eyes wide with worry. This isn't right. Why would he lie? They hurried back to the reception desk. The tall man wasn't there anymore. Gone, just like Eleanor. Instead, the same woman from before sat at the desk again. Bored expression, typing slowly. Malik stepped forward, trying not to sound angry. "Excuse me. We need to know where Eleanor Brooks is." The woman groaned softly. "Room 12, like always. She's not there," Malik said sharply. The woman looked confused. "What do you mean she's not there?" "She was moved," Malik said. The woman shook her head. "No one was moved today. No new arrangements. No transfers. Nothing." Malik felt a chill run down his spine. "But the man at the desk, there is no man on shift today," she interrupted. "It's just me." Silence filled the room. Cold, heavy, frightening silence. His mom exchanged a worried glance with him. "Are you telling me," she said slowly, "that an elderly woman with dementia is unaccounted for?" The woman's face paled. She began typing quickly. I don't understand. She should be in her room. Let me call staff." Within minutes, 2 nurses rushed into the hallway. One looked at Malik. "You visited her yesterday, right?" "Yes," he said firmly. "Do you know where she might go?" "No," Malik said. "She barely remembers the hallways." The nurses rushed to check nearby rooms. Malik paced back and forth, his heart pounding harder with every passing second. His mom put a gentle hand on his shoulder. "We'll find her," she said quietly. But Malik could see the worry in her eyes too. Suddenly, one of the nurses ran back. "Come with me," she said breathlessly. They found something. Malik and his mom followed her down a different hallway, one he hadn't seen before. Narrow and dim, at the end of the hall, a door stood open. It looked like a forgotten activity room. Dusty chairs, old tables, shelves filled with puzzles, missing pieces. And in the corner, curled up on a chair, was Eleanor, her knees pulled to her chest, her eyes red from crying, her body shaking. Malik rushed to her. "Miss Eleanor?" She looked up slowly. When she saw him, her breath caught. "You came?" she whispered. Her voice filled with both relief and fear. "I knew you would come. I knew you wouldn't leave me alone." Malik's eyes stung with emotion. "I'll never leave you," he said softly, as he took her trembling hand. She leaned toward him and whispered something that made his heart freeze. "They were looking for me," she said quietly, "but I hid." Just like before, Malik swallowed hard. "Who was looking for you?" Eleanor's voice trembled. "The same ones who hurt Thomas," she whispered. And Malik knew this wasn't just confusion. This wasn't just dementia. Something dark was following Eleanor Brooks. Something she remembered only in pieces. Something that wasn't finished yet. And now Malik was part of it, whether he was ready or not.